Welcome to another segment of Lady Mogul Talk, and this segment is in partnership with the HBCU Experience Movement, and we are so excited to have Dr. Raushannah Verwayne, also known as Dr. RJ, coming to the stage momentarily. But let me tell you a little bit about her impressive resume. She is a licensed clinical psychologist and the founder of Standard of Care Psychological Services in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. RJ integrates self-care, which is so important, with education of the brain and body connection, and explains neuroscience in a relatable manner for people like me who need that extra explanation. Whether it's speaking at a women's conference, hosting a corporate retreat, or attending a grassroots community service event, Dr. RJ is passionate about wellness and self-care. Her latest endeavor focuses on helping Black women executives and physicians eliminate burnout, anxiety, and stress. And as women entrepreneurs, we know about that burnout, anxiety, and stress so much because in our profession we often wear multiple hats. So I'm really excited about this conversation and give a warm virtual welcome to Dr. RJ. Welcome to the stage.
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you. This is such an important topic. And even though we have seen a rise in self-care and mental health, making sure that we are okay, it's still a growing profession, I would say. And so we're excited to hear about your expertise and then just get to know about all of the wonderful things that you do.
Yeah. So self-care is not a new thing, right? So if you think about Audre Lorde, way back in the day where it's her quote that, self-care is basically about survival. It's not just about being getting your nails done or getting your hair done or that sort of thing. It's an act of survival. And we went away from that for a little bit and then we came back around to it. So I'm super excited that self-care is trending again and that it's popular again. I've been talking about self-care for all of my career, at least 13, 14 years. So I'm happy to see that it's popular.
Definitely. And that actually goes to my first question about what was the defining moment that led you to embrace becoming a psychologist and furthering your platform in your field?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm one of those kids who has known that I wanted to be a psychologist since 5th grade. I was one of that kid, right? And so the idea came in my head actually from a teacher. I was always like the helper kid, the kid who made sure that everybody else was okay. And it was a teacher who said, have you thought about, wanting to be a psychologist? And that stuck with me. I knew I wanted to help other people. I knew I wanted to work with people. And that's what started it all.
That's amazing. I was not one of those people who knew right off the bat. I think I had a feeling it would be entrepreneurship in a way, but I thought I would be a firefighter, a police officer. I don't know what other occupation, or a spy. I thought I was going to be a spy too. But that's amazing that you knew at that early age your purpose, and you have really made quite a difference in your field. And I want to highlight, it's called a Snapped Behind Bars.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Please tell us about that. That was very interesting. And my mom, she read your bio too, and she said, oh, please ask her about that question. So please share with us what motivated this particular initiative.
Is Snapped Behind Bars, is that your mom's show? She likes the docucrime series.
Yeah.
So I've actually been an expert psychologist on several docucrime series like Killer Kids, For My Man, Snapped Behind Bars, and recently Snapped Behind Bars. What it is the regular snapped, right? It's when women or people in general, something happens and they snap, and then there's a death or a murder or whatever. Well, Snapped Behind Bars, Oxygen decided to air that. They talked to the person who was charged now while they're in jail to have like a retrospect of the crime. So my appearance on Snap mainly was to kind of analyze the behaviors of the crime and kind of talk about basically what could have happened and how any of us can really get in a situation like that if we're not taking care of ourselves and thinking things through.
That's true, because I remember, I'm not going to say the particular crime, but there was one that it didn't touch personally to home, but it affected not a friend of a friend, but on campus. I'll leave it at that. But it was the person that they least expected to commit a crime. So you never know, even just taking care of oneself and taking care of one's mind, how it will trickle down to other things. So it's really important that we pay attention to that. So that's really interesting. And congratulations for being one of the analysts on that. That's such an amazing just thing to have, to be a part of.
It's pretty cool. A pretty cool experience to see myself on TV. Yes. My kids are like, "You're on TV again, Mom." So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yes. And speaking of family, you do so much. You wear multiple hats. How do you find the time to prioritize family time, personal time, and your career?
Lots of self-care. So I practice what I preach, right? You know, when I talk to women and college students, because I work on both the preventative end and then the end where it's actually happening. What I say is taking care of yourself first allows you to give your best to everyone else. And we haven't done a good job of really teaching our community that. What we teach is that Black women in general are supposed to take care of everybody else and nurture everyone else. And then finally, we'll do what we need for ourselves. But it doesn't work like that. So I practice what I preach. I make sure that I'm well rested. I exercise. I do the things I want to do. That then allows me to give 100% to my friends and family.
Right. That's so true. And you're right. We often talk about the superhero woman cape on this show, and it would be wonderful to have your take on how do we break that chain and not think that we have to do everything, and then also get rid of the guilt about if we don't get everything done in that day. I used to be guilty. I've learned because one time I actually got sick from not taking care of myself, and that was not the right way to learn that lesson.
It's a thing. Like our bodies there's a book called The Body Keeps Score. Like our cells, our bodies know when we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, and it will catch up with you. This whole superwoman myth and cape and all of that stuff, I really think that it is trauma passed down from generation to generation. Obviously, I know that as Black people in America, our history doesn't start with slavery, right? We're descendants of kings and queens and engineers and agricultural specialists and that sort of thing. However, here in America, we started with the trauma of slavery. And so that DNA, right, is passed on. What happens in our brain is the brain will try to adjust and to prepare you, like almost brace you for what's to come next. And so imagine then if we have these hundreds and hundreds of years of taking care of other people, having to survive by taking care of other families, by hiding, by being alert, by overdoing it, respectability politics, all these things just to stay alive. Our brains and our bodies adjust to that. It braces itself for that and then shifts our genetic sequence. And then that passes along and passes along and passes along. So as Black women, especially, we have to be intentional about making sure that that natural feeling of putting everybody else first doesn't take over.
That is very true. And that reminded me of one of the quotes that I say to myself sometimes. Well, it's not really a quote. It's something I'm sure. No, I haven't reinvented the wheel. Somebody else probably said it before me. But instead of surviving, making sure that we're thriving. And that, again, goes to that self-care and making sure that we are putting ourselves first. It's also like when they say on the plane, you have to put your mask on first before you can help someone else. And it's really important that we as women continue to recognize the stressors and make sure that we are pouring back into ourselves. I appreciate your perspective on that. And would you say that it's just women across the board, or would you say that women executives or entrepreneurs do it the most?
Oh, goodness. I think I'll be specific as Black women, women of color across the board, but Black women. And then there's even a higher level of this sort of perfectionism sickness that executives, physicians, high level overachieving Black women have. And the reason I started a whole coaching program just for people like us is because we're ignored the most, right? People look at us and they say, oh, she looks good, she's doing good, she's running a business, that sort of thing. And so because we can multitask, because we know how to appear okay on the outside, a lot of us are suffering inside and no one is paying attention. And that's problematic.
Definitely. And that brought me to something else that I thought about. Me saying the word balance. I don't like that word. I like prioritization, because when you're balancing, you're juggling those multiple hats. And you said the multitasking. Multitasking is not always a good thing. And we really do need to learn how to just take a step back and do maybe those 1 to 3 things or whatever. Maybe it's just one thing for that day and be okay with saying, yes, I accomplished that, and that's helping me get to the next step. And again, you've just shared so many gems so far, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. I think you might be the first psychologist we've had on the platform. Yes, so making milestones on Lady Mogul Talk. Now, transitioning just a little bit. Of course, this is in partnership with the HBCU Experience Movement. And so I'm an HBCU grad. You're an HBCU grad. Shout out. What was your experience like at your HBCU? And then tell us about the book collaboration that is coming out, maybe, or is it out already?
It's coming out this month, October. So it'll be out very, very soon. So goodness, I could talk about my HBCU experience like all day, seriously. I am a very proud A&T graduate. My kids, all they know is, excuse me, all my kids know is Aggie Pride, right? HBCU is already in their blood. And so the reason that I think my experience was so rich was because, so I'm from Newport News, Virginia, and I didn't have a lot of exposure to, I would say, the variety of Black people that I had exposure to at an HBCU. And so in the inner city, in my personal experience, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of crime, and the people that I saw were just trying to make it. And so going off to A&T and being in a classroom with children of doctors and lawyers and judges, and, I was like, oh, right, I can get with this, because it exposed me to more than just my small view of what we could be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what do you think about the stigma of HBCUs? Of course, we both think it's relevant, but what do you think about the stigma that people have about HBCUs? Of course, we have Vice President Kamala Harris, and we have other remarkable people who have been notable before she became vice president. So what do you think what would you say to those who do not think HBCUs are relevant?
I think, I get it, right? So if we think about history and the civil rights movement, you had a group, everything goes back to history. Nothing is new under the sun. And you had a group of people who said integration is the way to go. That's the only way we're going to get things equally. And then you had the group who are like, no, we want to be with our own. We want to nurture our own. We just want the same opportunities. And I won't say that either side is right or wrong, but what I do say is that both sides need to learn about the other, so people who say that HBCUs are irrelevant, they're just uneducated about HBCUs. They don't know. There's no way they could know and still say that. So my opinion is they need more education. They need more forums like this. They need more exposure to what the experience actually is.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I also attended a PWI but my HBCU experience was like no other. I would go back in a heartbeat. So proud. And I think that's the same, no matter who I meet who has graduated from a HBCU, that's the same experience that they have. It's made such a profound impact on their lives. And you were able to relive the experiences through the upcoming 3rd edition of your book. So please tell us, what was that like to collaborate with your fellow Aggies?
It's such an amazing experience for everybody to kind of get together and tell their own story. My particular story is about being a first-generation college student. And so paving the way for everyone to come behind me, but just seeing all of the different perspectives and all the different stories. I think the diversity is probably the best thing about it, because everybody can find themselves in one of those stories. And I like that. I like that it's not just this sort of one way thing. Everybody's talking about the same thing. Everybody can find themselves in at least one of the stories in the book.
And that's another thing that I appreciate about the HBCU experience movement. Yes, we are all connected by African descent. We're Black, but there is diversity within our culture. And I really like that you said that you can find yourself in one of these stories. You might not resonate with one person, but someone, you're going to at least leave with one nugget that will impact your life. And I can really wholeheartedly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Now, when does it come out? And I think it's going to be on Amazon and then the HBCU Experience Movement website.
Yes, it'll be out very soon, October. So stay tuned for all of the news about the actual release date. And just keep your eyes and ears open, and it's coming. It's coming. It's big and it's coming.
We're excited, and we can't wait till they come around to Clark Atlanta University. It's going to be amazing just to see my fellow alums write their story as well. So we really appreciate the HBCU Experience Movement for all that they do and sharing the stories of so many HBCU alums. Now, transitioning back to you and your next steps, do you feel that you've reached, with all that you've accomplished so far, do you feel that you've reached the peak of your career, or do you feel that it is a continuum of learning and then striving for another level?
I'm just getting started. I feel like even with everything that has happened, I have a directed path. Right. And so I will continue to learn and read and stay involved in the community and stay current, so that whatever issues come up, I'm there to address them. I do really feel like I'm the psychologist for the people, for lack of a better word, because there really should be a psychologist in every room. Mm-hmm. And so especially all of these things we're facing, there's racial trauma, there's an economic crisis, we're still in the middle of a pandemic that no one has ever experienced before. We should not be operating in all these different rooms without a psychologist. And in my opinion, there should be a cultural match, right? If we're talking about issues with the Latino community, there should be a Latino psychologist, because there are specific things for that community that can be addressed. And there's a specific understanding and a level of trust that's needed to address those types of issues. Same thing in the Black community. Even though we're quite diverse, there should be experts who look like us and have our experiences in order to help us get through all of the things that we're facing.
And when you were talking about having someone that matches your culture, that reminded me of this post. I believe I saw it on Instagram, and it was of a little Black girl. I think she might have had her hair pressed that day, but humidity and everything, it shrunk. And so then it wasn't a mess, but it wasn't the way she wanted it to be. And so the Black teacher took it up on herself to put it in braids. And that just reminded me of the importance of those shared experiences, to make sure that we do have people who understand what we've been through, what we're going through, and those cultural differences. And so we really appreciate what you do for the psychology space and Black women in general, to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and making sure that we are recognizing the anxiety and stress. Now, just continuing on this path, what is next for you? What's on the horizon that we can expect to see from you?
I would love to see executive women feel free enough to get better. Right. What I'm seeing now is a lot of secrecy around specifically physicians and executives and entrepreneurs. It's like, okay, everybody else can get help, but I'm going to do it in secret because there's still some sort of shame. And I think this view of perfectionism that we're all raised with is rooted in shame and it's rooted in fear. And once we can address that, then I think more women will get the help that they need and they'll feel proud of it. And it won't be like this secret. It'll be like going to a new gym and get a new trainer. Same thing for your mental health as your physical health. You know, when we're going to the gym and we're getting a new trainer and we're working out, we're on Instagram stories all day, every day. But not many people talk about working out their emotional health and their mental health, when really that's just as important as your physical health, if not more.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yes. And how can we keep up with you? And if someone needs services, how can they get in contact with you? Are you virtual as well, or do you only just practice in Georgia?
Oh, that's a great question. So for therapy, so the therapy practice, that's standardofcarepsychological.com. But for anything that you need from me, if I am coaching and not doing it from a therapy standpoint, I can do it all over the country. So it's not just specifically Georgia. And I can be found at askdrrj.com, ASKDRRJ.com. Everything is there. I'm on Instagram at AskDrRJ. I'm on Facebook at AskDrRJ. So that's where I am. And I'd love to get to know a lot of you.
That's amazing. I know that our Lady Mogul community can benefit from your services, so I hope they do look you up and benefit from your wise counsel. I have really enjoyed the segment with you today. Are there any last words that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'll stick with this. Self-care isn't selfish. You can't serve from an empty vessel.
Oh, yes. That's wonderful. That is so true. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. And I hope you all take that to heart as you go about your lives, not balancing, but prioritizing family life, personal life, and your career. Remember those words that Dr. RJ said. So thank you very much for being here with us today. I enjoyed our time together. And this has been another segment of Lady Mogul Talk.